You Should Have Left. Originally intended for a theatrical release, the film was released digitally via video on demand on June 18, 2020, by Universal Pictures. It received mixed reviews from critics. Plot: Theo Conroy is a retired banker married to a younger woman, Susanna, who is an actress, and their young daughter Ella. One afternoon, when Theo attempts to visit Susanna on the set, he is refused entry. While waiting for clearance to be granted, he overhears Susanna performing a lovemaking scene and is visibly upset. Susanna later apologizes to Theo, attributing his obstruction to a misunderstanding, and she tells him that she has put him on the approved list. Theo informs Susanna that the set security guard recognized him. Susanna taunts Theo that they think you're dangerous. Shortly after, they book a holiday to Wales, but there's something strange about the house. Time is passing unusually quickly and they both have nightmares. They also discover that neither of them made the booking, each thinking the other did. One night, Ella sees the shadow of a man on the wall. The next morning, as Theo writes in his meditation journal, Ella asks Susanna why people don't like Theo. Susanna reluctantly explains that Theo's first wife drowned in the bathtub and people suspected he killed her, though he was acquitted at trial. While in town for supplies, the shopkeeper asks if he knew Stetler, who Theo assumes is the owner of the house. He mysteriously gives Theo a square and tells him to measure right angles, leaving Theo confused. Theo struggles with feelings of jealousy and distrust towards Susanna. One night, as he is taking a bath, Theo checks messages on his phone and laptop. Theo has a dream that night and sees that someone has written in his diary, "You should go. Go now." The next morning, as he watches Susanna and Ella playing outside, he sends her a text message. At the same time, he sees Susanna looking at her phone, hears a text vibration on the kitchen counter, and finds an identical phone with his messages on the screen. Realizing she has a secret phone, he suspects she has been cheating on him. He confronts Susanna, and she admits to having an affair with another actor. Theo asks her to leave for the night, and she goes into town to stay at an inn. He turns back to his journal to see that someone has now written, "You should have left. It's too late now." Discovering an anomaly in the angle between the wall and the floor, they measure the kitchen and find that it is larger inside than outside. Ella and Theo part ways. The two seem to be experiencing separate visions in the dream world. Once reunited, Theo calls Susanna, wanting her to come back and take him and Ella out of the house, but her phone is turned off. He then calls the shopkeeper and asks if he knows of any taxi services in the area. The shopkeeper replies that there are none and speaks cryptically of the house, saying that the devil collects souls from there. Desperate to escape the house, Theo and Ella decide to go into town on foot, but they see a dark figure watching them from inside as they walk away. After a while, they discover that they have returned to the house. Seeing no other option, they stay there for the night, but Theo re-enters the dream world and sees his and Susanna's past as they arrived at the house. Theo then meets Stetler, who has taken Ella captive. He takes the form of Theo to taunt him, and says he will return Ella on the condition that Theo does what he must. She returns, relieving Theo. The next day, Susanna returns to the house and Theo gives Ella to her. He finally confesses the true circumstances surrounding his first wife's death. He didn't kill her outright, but he didn't help when she was drowning. He simply watched her die because he had been miserable with her for so long. He accepts that he belongs in the house. Theo's soul is then seen trapped inside the house, revealing that he had been the figure watching himself and Ella leave the night before, having tried to warn his past self by writing the messages in his journal. The shopkeeper's voice says that some people don't leave the house and the place finds them. Ending explained. The ending of the movie You Should Have Left reveals that Theo let his ex-wife die, and the house is a purgatory that has Theo trapped by that sin he committed and now plagues his family as well. He faces his guilt and sin in the end, allowing his family to leave while Theo is consumed by the house. You Should Have Left is a psychological horror about a man suffering from psychological trauma due to his past sin. Furthermore, it is about him dragging his entire family down this path and eventually deciding to let them go. Theo was unhappy with his ex-wife and believed that if he could get out of that marriage, whatever the cost, he could finally be content. Then, he found a younger wife, had a daughter, and started his life over again, but he couldn't be happy. Jealousy was eating away at him. All of this suggests that he might have been the problem, not his late wife, at least not just her. But who is Stetler? While there is no definitive answer, 3 theories make the most sense. The first is that Stetler is an evil spirit or even the devil himself. The townspeople know him by reputation in a similar way in which they know the house is haunted. Stetler reveals that he ultimately resembles Theo, emphasizing that the devil is within us. The other explanation is that Stetler is a tormented soul who was once like Theo. Third, he is Theo himself trapped in a time loop. While this is partially true, unlike the movie Triangle, this is not a pure time loop movie. Meaning that not all of the events in the movie result from Theo jumping through time. What is the house? The haunted house is nothing other than purgatory. This is hinted at in a scene where Theo talks to his daughter about heaven and who can go there. As the story progresses, his confident tone changes to a much more uncertain one, indicating that he is aware of his sins. While talking about death, he is unwavering. However, when it comes to being held accountable for his sins, that is when he starts to feel anxious. As the shopkeeper says, you cannot escape the house as it will always find you. Running away from a crime may be easy, but hiding from your conscience is impossible. This further reinforces the concept of the house as a purgatory. Another exciting thing worth mentioning is that Susanna and Ella are with him in this purgatory. Anyone who is in a relationship with someone with a dark past knows that these issues easily spill over into the present. People who are suffering, even when they deserve help, sometimes drag those closest to them down the spiral. In scenarios where redemption is impossible, which is also debatable, the most humane thing one can do is to set them free. The fact that the house is majestic, with designer roofs and unique architecture, does not change this. It is not the shape of the house that matters, but what happens there. Still, even some of the harshest critics of the film praised the architecture of the house. The essence of the movie. Repressed guilt and uncertainty about future punishment are enough to create a real-life purgatory. The biggest problem with this concept is that the person at the center of this purgatory does not suffer alone. Their partners, children, and everyone close to them suffer with them. While repentance is important and redemption may be possible, the people closest to us sometimes stick by our side no matter the situation. This sense of loyalty can become self-destructive. It's like when a person is drowning. If you are not professional and try to save them, this person will end up drowning you in their despair. They may not be able to save themselves from suffering, but they can free their loved ones from this burden. Who is the villain in You Should Have Left? While the house seems haunted and some strange presences are felt, Theo is the main villain in You Should Have Left. His situation is much more complex than it seems at first glance. His last heroic act, where he helped Susanna and Ella escape the house, gives the viewer hope for his redemption. Furthermore, he accepts that he deserves his punishment, which is already a big step towards redemption. His crime is also quite interesting from a relativistic point of view. He did not drown his ex-wife, but he could have helped her and chose not to. The title of the novel's film might be even more ironic for this very reason. Instead of waiting allowing someone to drown, he should have left his marriage. Sure, there is a supernatural presence in the house. The shopkeeper even suggests that the house is a portal from which the devil collects poor unfortunate souls. Still, even if the soul of his deceased wife haunts the place, Theo is a main antagonist. This doesn't really free Susanna because she commits adultery, but that's a topic for another book or movie. Finally, the film addresses guilt. For example, in an affair, the unfaithful man or woman may deceive everyone and enjoy their adventure, but they do not realize that they are making their loved ones, their spouses and children, their friends, etc., unhappy. and all because of guilt, because there is one person who knows everything, and it is the unfaithful man himself, which makes them explode if they are laughing, and suddenly a word or a sound makes them explode, and no one knows why this happened, not even the unfaithful man himself, and they change the conversation or leave. In this way, guilt makes the person drown and drag everyone around them down with them. The only way out is redemption like Theo did, but that is not easy, and usually everything ends in tragedy, not necessarily with a death, but with a bad marriage for years, or a divorce, after bad times, mistreatment, etc. ACIQ, la unica innocent era ella, de no habasido por ella, Susana se hubiera cuidado con Theo en el purgatorio. Gracias por escuchar, adiós.